Today, we're going to talk about the last two phases of grief, and they're called acceptance and finding meaning. And as I shared in the very first lesson, finding meaning is a new phase that David Kessler has sort of organized with the phases of grief as the last one that not all of us actually ever achieve. So let's talk about acceptance first. So acceptance, we often think means we're okay with it. And the reality is, no. We can come to the acceptance phase of grief where we accept someone is gone, or accept that life has changed, or accept that we all have to wear masks now when we go to certain events. But it doesn't mean we have to like it. And our brains don't always enjoy what is called cognitive dissonance. It's when we say we're going to do something and then we don't do it, and then we later justify why we didn't do it. We don't like when we don't follow through with the things that we think or believe in. So with acceptance, when we don't like that something has occurred, we really struggle with accepting it. But this is part of us understanding again that life doesn't always go the way that we think it should, which is again the definition of grief. Letting go of that, or going on a journey of letting go of what we think should occur in life and accepting how it actually is. So acceptance. Again, we're not always liking it. We come to this phase and it comes and goes. There are times where I have full acceptance that my mom is gone. I understand it. I don't like it clearly, but I accept it. And then there are times where I don't accept it. I feel so much anger and so much sadness. I want to go back to denial. I want to just be in a bubble and act like everything is fine. I don't want to accept it. And even as a licensed counselor and grief healer who knows that acceptance is a big part of us growing and healing, I respect the fact that I'm going to fall into the other phases as well. But that's normal. So recognize that there might be a day where in the morning you accept that something is the way it is, but by lunchtime you've changed and you're back into bargaining. By the afternoon, you're angry, and at dinner time, you're just really sad. And by the time you go to bed, you're just exhausted because all of those emotions in one day is a lot. When we accept something has occurred, we give ourselves the permission to also have feelings and thoughts about it, but to know that those don't change the results. We don't have to enjoy how life is going right now, but we accept that is how life is. I accept that my children have to go to school with masks on. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. This is not what I would have chosen, but I understand that this is part of their life. This is what's normal for them now and what they have to adapt to. And who knows how it's going to affect them in the long term. But I know that I just have to accept that piece of it so that they stay healthy, so that we are careful. I don't have to like it. The last phase, as I shared, that David Kessler has found is called finding meaning. And I'm really glad that he has really accepted this as a phase in grief, because I think so many of us as therapists had seen this and we put it into the group of acceptance, but you'll see they're actually quite different. So finding meaning is a step beyond acceptance because it's almost it's finding purpose in what occurred. It's finding a deeper meaning. It's finding a realization. Now, when we think about finding meaning or a deeper meaning in a loss or a big move or change that we've experienced, people tend to think of the extremes, like these people who go off and like write books and speak on stages and like they found their greater calling. But finding meaning actually has a whole spectrum. Finding meaning could just be, I am grateful for life in a different way than I was before. I love differently than I did before. Because of this divorce, I now have a better idea of what I want in my life. I found deeper meaning because of that divorce, by knowing myself better, by knowing what I want in my life, and by finding that. Or we can go into the, I started writing songs. I created all these art pieces, like we talked about with anger, that people use anger. Sometimes it's also they find their meaning. My purpose is to help others express themselves. They change their careers. They get up and move to another country. I can't tell you how many clients or friends I've had who have done that because of a major grief episode. And it wasn't because they were running. It was truly because they found meaning. They found their purpose and they were ready to live it. They knew that life was short. It can be somewhere in the middle. You start to volunteer at a community, in a community situation. You start to go to local hospitals and give support there. There's a variety of ways that when we find meaning and purpose in the loss we experience, that we can serve. I think of it as serving others, as helping others, as really giving back to those, or serving ourselves, helping ourselves, giving ourselves love. So finding meaning is very different from acceptance, because again, acceptance, we don't have to like it. With finding meaning, you don't necessarily like it, but you realize it had to happen. This loss, this change, this rite of passage had to occur so that I could grow in this way and become this person who then could do these greater things, who then could impact more people, whether it be just in my family or with my friends, or in a bigger community setting or online. Finding meaning, we find not everybody gets to this phase because it is very difficult to be able to put everything to the side of how we feel about it and to see where the deeper meaning is. And it's not only that it's difficult, but it's also that people don't go through the healing process and that journey of grief, and so they don't end up in this phase recognizing the deeper meaning in things. So this is a phase that I would say some of us can come to really fast after a change, and some of us, it can take years if we ever get to it. Now, when I lost my mom, within a couple months, I found meaning, the small meaning that was starting to bud from what had happened. And the small meaning came from writing on Facebook and my personal page what I was going through, because I needed to get it out. I needed people to be witness to what I was experiencing. And as I started to write, I noticed people were responding, not condolences or sympathy, but their journey, their story. And I privately started having people write me going, thank you for sharing this. This is giving me the freedom to finally grieve. My dad has been gone for this long, or this happened to me years ago, and I never faced it. And it was like, wow, this is way bigger than me. And what hit me, and what gets me emotional still today, is one of the last texts I got from my mother was that me and her, were going to help, specifically women, help other women to find themselves again and to feel strong. See, at the time, I was focused on a program called From Stay-at-Home Mom to Chief Household Officer, helping those women who are stay-at-home moms to feel more in control, give them the tools that CEOs and entrepreneurs use for running a business and how they ran their homes so that they felt affirmed and even more confident. And so as I was working on that for a couple of years before she died, she was like, this is so good. This is really helping women, because she was that stay-at-home mom that lost her identity. And I had become that stay-at-home mom who lost her identity. And when I went back to work, I realized something needed to change. So she and I were texting back and forth about this. And she was like, we're going to change women's lives. We're going to help them find themselves again. And I look back at that text, and even though that was about being a stay-at-home mom, I see now it was about even more than that, even more than she realized. And so her death gave light to the ability for me to say, I'm going to continue that legacy, and we are going to continue to help change not just women, but people's lives, in recognizing who they are and what they're capable of, how strong they are, that they haven't lost themselves because of life situations that have occurred. So I found a greater meaning just by sharing about my grief. And then from there, starting to educate myself more on trauma and grief. And then from there, starting to teach more about it. And with my clients, doing therapy a little bit differently. And then starting to get on more podcasts about it and writing more about it. And now writing a book about it. So my meaning grew from just sharing a little bit out there. Hey, this is, as being an external processor, I put it online. This is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. To now really seeing there's a greater thing. We don't all come to that place of, yep, we're going to write a book or we're going to get on podcast. Most of us come to the place of, I'm going to do things differently in my family. I'm going to treat myself differently. I'm going to love differently. I'm going to see the world with more mindfulness, or be more grateful for what I have, grateful for the time I have. I'm going to try more adventures in my life because I know that life is short. I'm going to value those people and tell them how much I value them that are in my life, because they may be gone soon. So remember, finding meaning has a spectrum, and you find your place on it, not where you think you should be or what sounds really good. You really do what's best for you and what sits and aligns with who you are. So we've gone through all the phases. We've looked at acceptance today, and we've looked at finding meaning. And lastly, what I want to leave you with is a reminder of how capable you are of going through all of the phases over and over and over, multiple times, of healing that grief they experience, of going on the journey of understanding that life isn't what we expected it to be, and coming to a place of not only acceptance, but finding a greater meaning in why it's not the way that we expected it to be, so that you can enjoy life to the fullest. You are capable of that. There have been times in my life where I said, this is going to break me, I can't do this. And I've had amazing people come to me and say, this won't break you. You are Katie. Nothing's going to break you. You are strong. And as soon as you start to say something's going to break you, well, yeah, it's going to start to tear you down. But you're unbreakable. And that's true for you too. You are unbreakable. You can handle whatever is happening right now in your life. It might feel extremely overwhelming, all the emotions just flooding in, or you might have detached so much from it that you're scared of even tapping into it. But I promise you are capable, and whoever or whatever has been telling you for the last years that you can't, they're wrong. Easily. You are. You are strong, capable, and you have support in ways you don't even realize. So as you look at all these phases of grief, and go back and watch the videos to make sure that you really know them and you understand what to do in each phase that can really help you, make sure you remind yourself on a regular basis, I'm capable of going through this. This is hard. It feels like it will never end. But I know there are other times in my life I felt this way, and I've come out on the other side because of it. So I'm going to do that with this as well. I hope you've enjoyed this series. And if you've got any questions about the phase of acceptance or finding meaning, please let me know. Or if you've got questions more about grief, of course you can share them, and I will answer to the best that I can.